Welcome, friends, to Inks and Issues, a podcast where we discuss comics in a book club style format. And please, Mr. Sinister was my father. Call me Jonah.
And I'm 2 issues at the end of the story that really don't mean anything. I'm Kieran Bennett.
I'm Colossus's complete lack of regard for anyone, anything, and anyone around him.
And that is Pat Edwards joining us once again as we attempt to finally wrap up the Age of Apocalypse. It's been quite the journey, gentlemen.
I feel like we've all taught each other things.
Yep.
And
we've all
grown.
Learned a lot about ourselves. We've all stared into the abyss, and that is literally the name of a character in this book. I just realized.
And the abyss has maniacally laughed back.
So
I don't know if Jonah. I know Kieran saw. I'll vamp a little bit. Do a pre-show plug.
Okay.
Because this is a geekly show.
Yeah.
About I'm going to be a guest on a panel at GeeklyCon coming up pretty soon.
Excellent.
That's exciting.
Yeah. What's the panel?
It is called Another Pass with Case Aiken. Mm-hmm. And Case is a podcaster. He's got a show where it's it's not just a rip on bad movies podcast. It is they punch up. He's also a writer. They punch up movies, or they basically do pitches. They take a movie that they felt could have been so much better than it was. Mm-hmm. And him and a guest will each pitch each other, alternate versions of it.
Nice. Okay.
So he and I at 10 a.m. on the Saturday, I believe, of GeeklyCon are going to try to punch up.
I'm looking at your post now.
Yeah. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you. The classic 80s Tom Cruise epic ? Legend.
Oh, okay.
Also starring Tim Curry as a weird devil.
Right.
So we're live going to try and pitch each other ways to make it a much, much better movie. And since it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday, if you're listening to this, if you're geekly, if you're coming to GeeklyCon, we'd love to see you. We're going to have a nice spread of some coffee and donuts to help you get over your Friday night hangover. Yeah,
that sounds fun. Yeah, I was actually going, don't say Sunday during our panel. Please don't say Sunday during our panel. Because I want to go to this.
Man, American coffee and donuts is so good. It's just, you guys don't know how good you got it.
The way you talk about food from over here when you're here makes me wonder how bad is New Zealand food, Keenan.
We're so good at killing ourselves internally over like decades of just
there are things here that I will always love, but things like donuts and coffee and like fried chicken and things like that are actually American foods. You will always do better because
we're willing to put that much butter and grease on things.
Oh man, yeah, butter, grease, so good.
So good.
All right, well, are we ready to dive in?
Speaking of killing ourselves.
So, we are going to be covering, I don't know if I mentioned this at the top of the show, volumes 3 and 4 to finally reach the end of this epic
Bring an
story.
End to the Age of Apocalypse!
Oh, man. So we're going to jump into volume 3. So, as per the last 2 episodes, they do jump around a lot, and by that I mean the first issue within volume 3 is Excalibur number 2. So, and if you think the thing after that is going to be Excalibur number 3, then you have not been listening, because it is not going to come back around to Excalibur for quite some time.
Marvel basically made up their own version of math for this series.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do like that in the front cover of all of these things, it's like, this gathers these issues and these issues and these issues. And you're like, okay, cool. That makes sense because they're all grouped by series, but they are not presented like that in the book. And I kind of looked up what we're covering, which is the Age of Apocalypse, the complete epic. This is supposedly the chronological order that the story takes place in.
Okay.
It should not be the order that you read it in, because it's so hard to follow.
Yeah, I could see it making more sense if you read the issues kind of grouped together a little differently. But
you read all 4 parts of each.
Yeah,
and kind of you'd be jumping back in time a little bit, but that's okay.
But I'm sure we've all read stories or seen movies where they kind of like bring you to a point and then it goes back and like tells it from another character's perspective or another storyline.
I don't know what
happening.
a flashback is.
What was that?
I said I don't know what a flashback is.
No. So anyway, we're going to start with Excalibur number 2. So this is the team with Nightcrawler and
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. And the refugees that are going to Avalon, which is the...
Wait, hang on, Jonah.
Whoa.
Sorry. Before we totally rip into this here. Pat, did you say Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, because from the movie Nightcrawler, as a joke, a different Nightcrawler.
Oh my god. Oh, shit.
The news
I was
one.
like, oh my god, did Jake Gyllenhaal play Nightcrawler in the X-Men films? What the fuck? Okay.
Nope. But if he had...
Which, side note, that was one of the biggest disappointments of my nerd adult life when I heard that there was a movie coming out called Nightcrawler, and then I watched the preview for it, and I kept waiting for Jake Gyllenhaal to teleport. I was like,
oh, man. I'd watch a Nightcrawler solo film.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So this,
okay,
this
I do apologize.
Book, I got to jump in because this is the book that's following his group that is currently trying to make it to the basically the refuge of humanity, where it's all like nice and peaceful and there aren't Apocalypse's goons, constantly trying to murder all the humans. So they have made it there. And things start going badly because Damask, Wade, and Damask's girlfriend, who I don't even know what that character's name was now.
Moonstar?
What was that?
Danny Moonstar?
Sure.
Well, she kills. So it's just Damask and Deadman Wade that make it there.
Oh, okay.
Because on the way down, Damask was getting annoyed by her because she kept cutting Wade just to watch him heal for fun.
So she killed her.
Right.
Yeah, so she was annoyed, so she killed her.
That's right. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. It's a lovely band of psychopaths.
Uh-huh. So basically...
cool name. They call them the Pale Riders, as in death, so...
Yeah, so it's just kind of there to show how hardcore things are, because it's the 90s. And then, the people who saved Kurt and the refugees jettison the refugees into the ocean and kill them. And Kurt slices all of the bad dudes with swords, and Mystique shows up hanging off of a helicopter ladder with 2 guns. And that's pretty much the gist of what happened.
Yeah.
The leader of these pirates is Callisto, which I forgot what her role in the major...
what her deal is.
I forgot who she is. I've seen her before in things, and I forgot what she does in the canon, the normal Marvel universe.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the problems I was having with following these lesser known characters, was a lot of them I'm like, I don't really know who these characters are in the normal universe, and this is a twist on this person I don't know.
And what's funny about this whole thing is it's such an interesting, what it also gives you a nice peer into is who was popular at the time.
Yeah.
Because they show up later, but obviously if you say Marvel to anyone, the first thing to think of is the Avengers right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, only a few of them show up, I don't want to spoil it, and they have very, very small bit parts, but not even all of them are in this. And, or Spider-Man's not in this at all, and it's very interesting.
Spider-Man's just dead.
He's dead.
You didn't see him die. He's just a gravestone.
Right. Yeah, they definitely were leaning real heavy into the fact that the X-Men were on the top of the world at this point. Yeah. So every character is like a mutant that either you heard of or saw in the cartoon as a kid, or, was popular for a month, or they tried to make a thing like Blink. Whatever happened to Blink?
we don't get Spider-Man or Captain America, but we get a 4-episode arc with Amyor, who's a nihilist.
Yes, a nihilist. It was real vital.
Everyone's favorite character.
This whole thing. Was it me, or did the Blink issues have kind of nothing to do with the rest of the story?
It's not you. They had nothing to do.
I mean, that seems harsh, but fair.
I mean, if anything, if you want it, I guess. If you want to be super generous, you could say that they showed her kind of coming out of her shell. As if you remember when we meet her, she's very timid and kind of shell-shocked and traumatized.
Right.
And maybe breaking out of that and being I think resilient and strong and brave and ready to fight back. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
okay.
Yeah, the classic coming of age story where you go to another dimension and fall in love with the mutant alien.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who ends up being one of the Fantastic Four's, like, big villains. You know, classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic
That
hero's journey.
Old chestnut.
Yeah. So Excalibur #2, it was a lot of action sequences, and honestly, I found it pretty forgettable. So I don't know about you guys. Like, I was hitting this point where I'm just like, okay, let's keep things moving, guys. This is the third volume.
I mean, it was
of this stuff.
literally an entire issue just to have Kurt meet Mystique.
Right.
Mom.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the point of that was because Mystique is supposed to be the only one who knows what destiny looks like, and they need her mutant ability, which is to, like, see the future or different possible futures to figure out what timeline is, like, the correct one. It's a pretty convoluted plan, but I'm sure it'll all pay off in the end.
Now that's what I thought, and I was like, oh, that is a plan.
Mm-hmm.
No, they only need destiny to verify what Bishop is saying.
Okay, yeah.
Their entire plan is so that they can catch up to what the reader already knows.
So that way the characters, because it's player knowledge versus,
Exactly.
character knowledge.
Exactly.
Should we go? Because I'm reading ahead Kieran's notes on the next one, and I'm laughing.
All right, so we got to the astonishing X-Men #2, which is the adventures of, like, Rogue and the X-Men and, like, what they're all kind of up to.
Yeah.
So the X-Men arrive in Indianapolis, everyone's favorite city, to stop Holocaust from committing big genocide. Holocaust villain monologues to Sabretooth that there's a super secret facility up the road. So Sabretooth sends Sabretooth Chan, otherwise known as Wild Child, off with the information. They have a really big fight, and Sabretooth takes his shirt off, and it's very good. He's so wide. He is wider than he was on the previous page.
The doorways in this world must be
they must
like
be massive.
7 feet wide, because everyone is so wide. Holocaust, everyone's so wide.
Yeah.
Everyone just has, they don't actually have doors. They just have, like, the Japanese sliding doors in the walls. There are no doorways because you would not be able to get anywhere.
Yeah, it's not super, it's basically, what is it? It's like Rogue, Blink, Wild Child, Sabretooth, Morph, and they show up to try and stop a culling, as they call it, the genocide.
Yeah.
And Sabretooth wants Blink to teleport him directly to Holocaust so he can stall Holocaust so the others can do something, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah. And Holocaust is basically like, you will never stop me in my secret facility, which is just up the road.
Right.
And so he wakes Wild Child up and he's like, yo, man, go tell everyone else. And so they have a big fight. And it looks like Sabretooth is about to win, but instead he falls over and Holocaust is like, mahaha, I am very evil.
This is one
like
of
the first of 3 times when Holocaust dies.
This is one of the many times that either Sabretooth or Holocaust is like, thinks they've bested the other one, and then they just show up again later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, Holocaust has, like, the most flexible mortality of anyone in the whole story.
Sure.
And that, like, he's supposed, I think he was Nemesis in volume 1, and he was supposed to be like, he has to stay in the suit because he's been damaged.
Yes. They don't follow their own rules, which drives me. You can get weird and stupid and campy and just be nuts, but if you're going to set rules, follow your rules. And they don't follow your rules with him.
They never follow those rules.
But that shot of Sabretooth shirtless picking up a giant boulder is pretty bitchin'.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's very good.
I'm like, oh, crush me with that boulder.
It's like when you're learning to draw and you aren't looking at an actual anatomy book. You're like, I'm pretty sure I know where muscles go.
This is how large pecs are supposed to be, right?
There's pecs and under pecs, and
yeah, those are like the real, like, pro strats of your bodybuilding. You got to do your pecs, then you got to do under pecs, then you do the under pecs,
and then you got to work on that 17 pack or whatever all these dudes seem to be sporting. So
yeah, like how they have abs like on the sides of their rib cage,
right? I mean, I assume those muscles are all in there somewhere. You just got to be really, really buff, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we good on that one?
We're good. Let's get into Generation Next #2.
Sponsored by Pepsi.
Yes.
Pat, do you want to take it?
Mm-hmm. So, just a quick reminder to listener, Generation Next is the team led by Colossus and Shadowcat with Chamber, Husk, Vincente, Mondo, and Skin. And if you recall, they've been sent on a sort of a really, really tough mission to rescue Colossus' sister, Ileana, from like the core. It's some big like underground mine that generates power for Apocalypse's empire.
It's all kind of nebulous, but it's an excuse to have lava everywhere. So
yeah, I guess it's they say at one point it generates all the power for the empire, but it's also like apparently, it's one of the hardest places to get in and out of, and they're basically a Suicide Squad before Suicide Squad.
Sure.
And so we have Ileana. She's working in the mine. She's hiding from the Sugar Man, who's this big giant face with arms. That's what he is. Like,
yep. No, you're not wrong.
And again, he's a huge role, I feel like, throughout this whole series, and he's not that cool, I don't think. And I don't think he exists in the main universe.
Right. I don't know. I wasn't familiar with him.
But they're all breaking in different ways. You've got Skin and Jono, aka Chamber, on some kind of like carriage that they hijack to sneak in because they're stealing like workers' clothes and credentials. And it's not anything super worthwhile. I mean, that one artist rendering of the core, it looks like this giant silo of doom.
I mean, it is essentially just like a Mount Doom.
Yeah, it's like if Mount Doom and a nuclear reactor
things.
fucked and had a baby.
Yeah.
And then Colossus for some reason is in a disguise of like worker overalls and like a big like neckerchief, but it's like, my dude, you're still like an 8 foot tall, like 500-pound man made of muscle or who's made of steel.
No one will ever
like
know
your
it's
skin
me.
is like pretty recognizable.
Yeah. But
they're just talking about how the nature of how tough this is going to be. And Shadowcat gets jumped, but then by some like scout, but Colossus like rips the mountain off and then smashes the scout.
Yep.
Literally, he pulverizes so many people.
Oh, he he straight up just murders. Like him and Shadowcat have no qualms with killing anyone who's in their way. And Shadowcat, I don't think we mentioned last time, has ridiculous like Wolverine claws that are like,
oh yeah, I don't know why she has those,
just so that she can murder people. It even says snicked when she kills a guy, so maybe she was a friend of Wolverine's that we didn't really get much of their backstory, and she thought his claws were so cool, so she had to have some of her own.
And he's like, here's how you make the snicked sound.
Yeah.
He trained her for months.
And then 60% of the training was that.
What is Candyman's goon? Like that big hairy dude. Like he's like in charge of
I looked this guy up.
The purple guy?
Quietus.
Who I feel like is
no
like
information online.
Slash from Guns N' Roses was a mutant.
Yeah. But you never find out what his like
No,
deal
and I
is.
even looked that up. They never tell you what his mutant power is. And it's not online anywhere. But he's just this big purple dude with like a biohazard tattoo with big, like I said, slash hair and a nose ring. You never see like his eyes. He's just got a big nose poking out.
Yeah.
And it's really creepy. He's in a bath with a pretty girl getting bathed. But she's actually, it's actually Husk in disguise, Paige Guthrie. She's undercover. Mm-hmm. And there's some really, he's wearing this is very important to the story. He is wearing a suit that is orange and purple pinstripes.
Yes.
It's very good. He sucks, but the suit is good.
Right.
Yeah. And she's basically undercover as like a courtesan or something, just escort of some kind. And while she's trying to like, schmooze him up a little bit, she starts coughing and getting sick. And it's because he taps a little device that just looks like an old radio, like an old transistor radio, but he says it's a little device that detects mutants and makes them violently sick. So he knows she's not a normal human escort, and she thinks he's an assassin. Also, some random McDonald's product placement in there.
I'm sure they were thrilled.
Yeah, if you look above his hand, there's a nice little M.
So McDonald's is still around after Apocalypse takes over the world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
they're complicit. That's my headcanon. McDonald's helps Apocalypse.
Yeah, McDonald's are complicit.
Yeah.
They're complicit in the human genocide.
I mean, they kind of are.
I mean, yeah. As soon as Apocalypse came down, they were like, "Yo, dog, you want some McChickens to go with your culling of the human race while you bomb the Western Seaboard? Here, go for it."
Yeah, I'm going to be real with you right now. I had a McChicken right before we started recording. So
how dare you? Prelate Jonah Gregory, fifth horseman of the apocalypse.
So he like smacks her. Not cool, bro. Even in a war. But he's like, then he starts monologuing about, the courage and stuff like that. And then there's some flask he decides he's going to take a drink from for no reason. There's literally no reason for him.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, is this yours? I'm going to drink it.
Beating people is thirsty work.
Yep. So then he's smacking her around and he's got some weird like gun he's going to shoot her with. And then all of a sudden his body basically melts or erupts into bubbles. And it's Vincente, who he's never given like a superhero name, but basically his power, he can shift between like liquid or gas or solid. Mm-hmm. And then he's covered in purple man goop.
Yes. Is he a character normally? Because he actually seemed like potentially an interesting character, like with those powers. He
is. I was curious about that. He is a character. I think he's more of a villain though in the normal Marvel timeline.
Okay.
So he's done the old switcheroo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of our side flippers.
Yes. Yeah, and then they disguise as the guy they just murdered, like the two of them, which that part cracked me up. They're they're literally like the two people in a trench coat pretending to be an adult.
It's
adult, I mean the giant purple man.
Yeah, it's like Husk can like make herself look like him, but she's too small. So Vincente like uses his gas form to like puff her out or something like that.
It's very weird.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I thought it was kind of hilarious because it was so kind of, so dumb.
And then there's a guard walking around the outside of the core, and a piece of the brick wall like reaches out and kills him, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's Mondo.
Yeah. Yeah, Mondo, I actually liked that character.
Mondo was cool.
Yeah, because he had a cool like camouflage power, but he just not really camouflage. He just kind of becomes part of it, right? Like he seems to kind of take on some attributes of it, almost like Absorbing Man or something. Which I thought was pretty dope. So this issue, I have to say, it was a lot of like stuff. Like this one actually felt like there was more going on, and I actually really liked the art and the coloring in this issue. I thought it really stood out. It was a very different style than a lot of them have been.
Yeah. It had like its own like feel to it, like the Generation Next ones do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I did actually really like it. Like it felt distinctive. And as you say, like it actually felt like there was something happening.
Right. Well, they actually had a mission and they had like an arc to what was happening. And I think it just moved a little better than some of the other ones that, that we've seen so far. And I don't know what it was, like that character design specifically of Quietus felt like something out of a Neil Gaiman story, like a Neil Gaiman comic or something. Like, should he be a villain in a Sandman comic? Because that's what I was thinking. And that's not in a bad way at all. That was just, I actually kind of liked him because of that, I think, because he felt a little different than what we'd seen before. And what a great suit, like you mentioned. Purple.
What a great suit.
Purple and orange pinstripe. But that was about that one. And then we get to jump back because we're still jumping from book to book to book to X-Man #2, where we meet back up with Domino, Caliban, and Grizzly.
Domino, side flipper.
Yep. So she's an evil villain now.
Isn't that wacky?
Yeah. And they are fighting and kill some random dude. Like, I don't think he was important in any way.
He wasn't. It was solely so they could be like, Domino, Caliban, Grizzly.
Yeah.
They're cool and kill people.
Well, the guy they're fighting is actually, and they don't, some of these redesigns I think are pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And it's just a different take on their look. Other than his tentacles, there's nothing about him. They were just lazy. This is actually Omega Red.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
You'd never know because there's literally nothing but the tentacles.
Right.
But he's Russian. It's just that he's Russian.
Okay.
But
that's fair.
They just threw that in there.
So yeah, that's basically to show, like you said, that they're very cool, Domino, Caliban, and Grizzly, and they can kill a guy. And then we go to Nate, who's X-Man, and he's hanging out with his boys and Forge. Forge is hitting him a lot. It's not a good relationship, but it's his only father figure.
Well, yeah, but actually.
And then that new guy who was not Mr. Sinister, clearly the guy with the giant red diamond on his head.
Who calls himself
It's not
Essex.
Mr. Sinister. Yeah, it's Essex, guys, not Sinister.
Yes.
Hey,
Stop calling me Mr. Sinister.
Quick question. Do you guys like the redesign of Forge?
It seemed a bit much.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. It was kind of like someone was like, hey, Ford should have some cybernetic parts. And then like another 7 people all said the same thing. And they all got to add a cybernetic part to them.
Right. Like it's nothing. No one thing was inherently bad. I think it was just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it looks goofy. But that's the one thing. Do everything you want, but make it. That's the whole point of comics: is do the weirdest shit you can think of, but make it look cool.
Right. Somebody thought that looked really cool.
Well, they were wrong.
Yeah. So the not Mr. Sinister tells them that they should destroy this gene processing plant that he knows about. And Nate goes there and gets his ass kicked and barely escapes with his life. And he psychically links to Magneto. And then we're like, oh, good, this plot is going somewhere. But then Domino, Caliban, and Grizzly show up and are like, not so fast, plot. We need to have a fight first. And that's pretty much entire issue. It goes by pretty fast. I didn't hate this one though. Like
it was fine, but it was very much like an issue where it was sort of like, and here's this character, and here's this person foolishly believing that they can do something,
sure.
And now we have to fight.
Yeah, and also it ends with Brute remembering or realizing who Essex is because he was experimented on in the pens.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and he dies.
Yeah, he does.
And I mean, I think the biggest quandary of this entire saga is how's that little baseball cap stay on his head?
Yeah. He's got a giant head and very...
Hey, Pat?
Yeah.
Pat?
Huh?
It's the future.
Oh.
It's the future.
It's not. It's 1995.
Right.
At the time, it was the future.
Oh. All right.
I would love it if it fell off and we see he's got just this tiny little hand sticking up.
Why would there be a hand?
From all the genetic experimenting that Sinister did on him.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, you know what this like big strong guy needs? A tiny hand on the top of his head. Hey, maybe he can like fucking hold a drink or something.
I guarantee you Dark Beast tried that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Beast, what are we giving you all this funding for? You just keep putting hands on people.
It's like, well, I thought it was funny. All right, Kieran.
I thought it was funny. I'm evil.
Yeah. Do you want to keep us moving? We got a lot of stuff to get through, so
we have a lot to get through. We gotta go. So this is the Astonishing X-Men number 3, which is Rogue and all of her peeps. So Rogue and the X-Men find out where Holocaust has taken Sabretooth when Wild Child licks Rogue and she absorbs all of his memories. So they break inside the facility inside Morph, who is a whale. And this is not a joke. He is actually a whale, and he swims up and crashes onto like a porch thing, and he's like, hey, I'm a whale. It's me, Morph. And they all jump out. Meanwhile, Magneto's son is put in a metal egg as Magneto fears that Apocalypse is on his way to it's not Professor X's mansion because Professor X is dead, but he's on his way to the X mansion, and that's basically the entire issue.
Yeah. I mean, he does confront Bishop as well and slaps him.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a thing that I remember happening in this one. Also, the nanny bot cracked me up. So just because it was so stupid that I actually really liked it. It was the kind of dumb that I really get on board with.
It was one of those things that Age of Apocalypse loves to do, where it's like, I think Apocalypse might be on his way. We should give Charles over to the nanny bot, which we obviously have, that's made out of fucking vibranium or some shit. Here, take my child, invincible nanny robot that looks like a nanny from the 1920s.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
With like the pinafore and everything. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And this issue has one of like the 5 times when Magneto is shown through the lens of like sights of a gun and he's monologuing about something. That happens like 4 or 5 times. Real quick, I know I want to highlight Morph because I think he does some excellent work in this issue. He starts off by impersonating Holocaust to confuse some infinites.
Mm-hmm. Where's
he
the
talks
top
about
hat?
doing a song and dance number. Yep. He does the whale. And then I like this a little bit with Sunfire when makes himself like a platform for the people to stand on, and Sunfire's flying them. And he basically, Sunfire like, admonishes him for always joking around. And his whole thing is like, we're all fucked. You realize that, like, we're all fucked. We're all going to die. So I'm going to choose to die, having a good time. And which, I
did like that. I like that.
He also turns into Jim Carrey's The Mask a few times in this issue. And by that, I just mean they drew him to look exactly like
he does,
that.
yes.
Or did you mean Jim Carrey's The Mask looks like Morph?
I don't know. When did the Mask comic come out?
It doesn't matter because the Age of Apocalypse is the genesis of all modern pop culture storytelling.
Okay, fair enough. You got me.
I did get you.
All right. Anything else on this one before we move into the next random issue?
Nah.
All right, Pat, do you want to take us into X Factor number 3?
I think you mean Factor X number 3.
What?
Oh, sorry. It is Factor X. You're right.
Oh, Kieran, come on.
I'm sorry.
Every single other thing is X something. They just put that one in to throw you off.
So we open on a scene that we have seen before, just slightly different, with one of Sinister and Dark Beast's experiments, some giant animal fucking shit up, and Havoc trying to put it down and failing, and then Cyclops coming in and saving his big brother again, and Havoc being a pissy little whiny baby about it. Oh my
God, he's such a little piss boy. He's like, you didn't need to save me, Scott. I wish you were never born. And Scott literally says to him, you always say that. And it's like, yeah, he fucking does.
Yeah.
Just kill him now, Jesus.
Yeah. And then we cut to Jean Grey is sneaking into the pens. If you remember, she left Logan in Europe because she wasn't down with the Human High Council's plan of nuking all of North America.
Right. For some reason, she's like, maybe we shouldn't nuke the entire continent.
So she's got like an infinite, like psionically hypnotized, and she's like pretending to be its prisoner. She's sneaking in, but then the like the brain trust or whatever they call it, he's got a bunch of like psychic brains and orbs trying to like suppress psychic abilities. She goes to Sinister's lab, sees it's all messed up. There's a random weird dog there that she's distracted by, and then Havoc hits her with a blast and knocks her unconscious. Then we cut to Heaven, the nightclub run by Angel, Warren Worthington, and his beautiful, the singer Scarlet, who is a human, and we've already seen been having a relationship with Havoc. Dun dun dun, which is frowned upon in this society.
Very frowned upon.
She's got the morning sickness.
Yep.
She's pregs.
Yep, because in any kind of story, movie, TV show, comic book, if a woman throws up, she is pregnant.
Yep. But the Bedlam brothers show up to arrest her because they say they have reason to believe she's been working with the Resistance, which she has.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they weren't supposed to know. It's very rude of them to find out her secret plan.
Come back to Havoc and Scott, and Jean Grey is all up in like some weird contraption by Dark Beast. There's a little flashback to when Jean Grey originally escaped, and Scott, or Cyclops, and Logan had their big battle that cost him an eye and Logan a hand, which again would have been a real. This whole saga shows us so many things we don't need to see, and then alludes to some really cool shit
that I would love to have seen.
Yes.
Yeah. There are a lot of things where it's like, and now we join these characters having just finished something really interesting.
Yeah. So the tension between Logan and Scott Summers Cyclops in like the normal Marvel timeline is interesting because they both are in love with Jean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's ongoing, but they are all both still like good guys on the same team inside. So they have that little tension. but it's just always there and they just deal with it.
Yeah.
Now they have this opportunity and they could like let them really go at it, and that could be a really cool multi-page like action sequence. And they just arguably, which would have been one of the best action scenes in this whole saga. Like Wolverine versus Cyclops, like in a real fight, trying to kill each other,
like an
and
actual
each other
fight to
up.
the death. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're like, nah, we're not doing that. We're going to have Havoc. We're going to have Havoc bitch about his brother for another 10 pages.
Yeah. But, so they basically order, so Havoc tells and the Guthries are there, and, the super stereotypical Southern siblings. Then they want Cyclops to kill Jean Grey and execute her. He says no.
Like, fucking do it, you coward. Do it. Do it, you coward. Kill her.
So Cannonball, one of the two Guthries, like ambushes him, and then the other one, she like smashes him into the ground. Because if you remember, this is after, because this is so freaking long ago, Havoc had spied on Cyclops and caught him like helping someone escape from the pirates.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
I don't know why am I saying that's right? I read it. I knew that.
Hey, I read it too, and every once in a while you guys bring something up where I'm like, oh, right, that's what this plot was, what was going on.
So he's captured. They basically say, you're a traitor, and Havoc, I'm in charge now. But him and Jean escape because superpowers, and then it ends on Apocalypse ordering Rex, his lackey, to have all of the prisoners killed just because fuck it, he doesn't need them anymore.
Right.
And is Rex somebody in the main timeline?
I wasn't sure on
Who
that.
knows?
I did note that this is the only time we see, or maybe it's not the only time, but we finally see Scott without the hair covering his one other eye. So you actually see that his glasses, like that one, doesn't even have like the ruby quartz thing anymore, because why would it need to? Because he lost that eye, which I just thought was kind of cool. That confirmed that, he's an actual Cyclops now, I guess. They just had to really lean into that. And it's like, this is yet another example where Apocalypse is just there to be on the last page so that a lackey can report to him what the good guys just did, and he can be mad about it. That is his main role in this entire series.
They've continued to interfere with my plans. How surprising.
Yeah. But overall, this is where I think like the last issue and this one is where it took a while. This is the third volume, which is actually the fourth volume because we covered the prelude. But this is where I was finally like, okay, the wheels are starting to hit some traction for me. Like,
finally,
it took it a
train
real
is
long
leaving
time.
the station.
But I think, as we said at the beginning, like, I think the reading order may have made a lot of difference had we read them in maybe like 2 issues of each one together before switching. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely
being ping ponged around so much. Any other thoughts on this one before we move on? I don't want to jump too far ahead if you guys do.
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. So that brings us to the Amazing X-Men number 3. So this one, Apocalypse sends a bunch of his goons to basically kidnap Magneto, and it actually goes really well for the bad guys in this one because they keep is this when they start alluding to Magneto not being at full power? Like, something happened where he gave some of his power, was it to Rogue?
Something like that. Yeah, I think he gave it to Rogue or yeah.
So they kind of keep implying he's at half power or something. So he gets defeated by Apocalypse. It's like the one time Apocalypse kind of actually shows up for a fight. And sadly, it's over very quickly, though. But there is a hilarious scene where he's, screaming, "I'm Apocalypse," over the body of Magneto, except Magneto's basically laying in his lap and Apocalypse is playing with his hair. So
yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Because he loves him.
Mega giant fist.
Secretly, did they have something going on the side that we weren't told about? I don't know.
I can see the issue now. We join Apocalypse and Magneto having just confessed their love. Anyway, here's Alex yelling at his brother again.
Yeah. But we actually get to see the nanny bot, pull out 10 billion guns when the the troops make it to her to try and kidnap the baby.
That's the panel I alluded to, I think, in the first episode we did about like that doesn't even look like anything.
Nope.
It looks like vacuum cleaners on the end of, I don't know.
Like, I think there's some that I swear look exactly like desk lamps I've had before. Like the artists were just like, oh, what kind of looks like a gun that's on my desk? And then they just drew that. And then most of the rest of the issue after they're kidnapped is just about the rest of the team, the X-Men team, like kind of coming together, and Warren like kind of meeting up with them, and them all figuring out like, hey, you know, Apocalypse took Bishop and Magneto, and that's going to be bad for everybody. And we're also introduced to Abyss. Has he been in it yet? I couldn't even remember. I'm like,
remember when they were trying to evacuate the humans up north?
Okay, yeah,
that was that guy. He hit him to Kid, and like Quicksilver fought him, and we thought killed him. Like he pushed his face into his own like abyss in his own like chest cavity.
Okay, that's the last time
we thought he had died, but you know, in comics no one can die.
Yeah. Exactly.
Side note, again, 2 issues later or whatever, we have a shot of Magneto talking to someone through crosshairs, and it's also Bishop pointing a gun at him again.
I mean, that's his jam. He can't get enough. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of that issue. Like, there's a big action sequence, and then they get kidnapped, and the rest of the X-Men are like, what happened? And they spend most of the issue figuring out what happened, and then we see Abyss is back, and that's pretty much it.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Abyss is back. We see, Bishop's being tortured by the Madri, and Shadow King, and Abyss.
Yeah, and those guys come back later. The Madri, like the cult that are like worshipping Apocalypse, essentially. It's another one of those threads where I'm like, this could have been expanded upon and been really cool, but you're trying to cram in so much. And even though you're taking how many different series over the course of all these months, it's still like didn't have enough breathing room. So yeah. All right. So that brings us to Excalibur number 3. Kieran, you want to take it?
All right. Excalibur number 3. So Nightcrawler and Mystique head to Avalon after Nightcrawler slaps her and shames her for being a human trafficker, which fair. But when they get there, they meet Destiny. Damask and Wade show up there as well, and they're ready to friggin' kill some folks. And Damask has a change of heart because everything is so beautiful here in Avalon, but Wade does not. So everyone has a big fight, and Nightcrawler teleports his head off, and everyone poses and says they're going to go and take down Apocalypse. It's pretty fucking rad.
Yeah, and the only thing, overall, I liked this issue. The only thing was the end of the whole thing with Kane, aka Juggernaut.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty dumb.
It's so stupid.
So
I didn't even mention it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want to go ahead? Do you want to do it?
Well, so Juggernaut's there, and they're like, hey, we're dying. Can you help us? And he's like, yeah, but I also committed to peace. And he has a brain aneurysm and falls over.
Yes.
And it's like,
that's not
why?
How, like, people make decisions and then they change their mind and make other decisions. You don't, like,
what? And they spend like a couple panels explaining it as well. It's like, just don't have it in the story. Just don't show me this. This is not relevant.
Yeah, it's yeah, I didn't like it at all. Like, I actually really liked this interpretation of Juggernaut I mentioned last time. And, like, okay, so they introduced this cool alternate version, and then they just are like, no, we're not doing anything with this.
Yeah.
Which,
it's like, see this thing that's cool and interesting? No, fuck you. Havoc's yelling at his brother again.
Well, like, if he had gotten to fight, like maybe something pushes him over the edge or whatever, and he actually gets to be part of this fight. But then they're like, well, if we do that, then maybe Nightcrawler doesn't get to teleport Deadman Wade's head off, and he doesn't get to be the cool one. So I don't know. I didn't like the decisions that were made as far as some of this stuff goes.
That's like the tagline for this whole story.
The whole 180 turn for Damask 2 is weird because just an issue ago, she is such a ruthless psychopath killer that she murdered a friend and a member of her team just because she was kind of annoying her.
Yeah.
And now she's like, this place is so beautiful. I need to be a good guy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I hate to bring back this same old chestnut, but choices were made. So, and that brings us to Weapon X.
Weapon X.
Number 3.
I'm just going to read Kieran's
go for it.
because it's so great. Logan tracks down a guy called Gateway so he can help the Human Council nuke the U.S. Carol Danvers is also there, and they fight a guy with claws. That's Pierce. We've seen him before, who definitely dies and will not come back. Carol falls from the plane they escape in. Yep, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much
Gateway
it.
can like open like a portal basically to help their fleet or whatever get through the defenses.
Was I really stupid, or did they not like fully explain that aspect of him going there?
No, yeah, they didn't really. He's
okay,
just there.
sweet. Because I read this particular one, Weapon X number 3, a couple times. Because I had no idea what the fuck was happening. I didn't know why. I don't know why he was retrieving this Gateway dude.
And I just, yeah, it's because he can open like a portal for the planes to go through. But again, we talked about this already. What makes me so annoyed. I like the design they did for Logan Weapon X in this. I think it's pretty cool and it worked. Like, badass, the whole like one hand thing. And this villain, this Pierce guy, who they have him squaring off for 4 issues. Who's just like an altered, he's not even a mutant, he's an altered human who like arms can stretch out with giant claws and shit. It's so, he's nobody. It's dumb.
Yeah.
And even if you like that power, you have Lady Deathstrike is in the canon. You could have had her be this like nemesis who is someone he squares off against. And I don't know. It's just.
Yeah. And the enhanced human guy, like he just looks like a really dumb version of Cable, like the way he's drawn, just that's all I could think of. Like he's got the white hair and like a robotic eye going on and metal arms. Like he has the same like buff metal arms, which hilariously he's wearing gloves over, which I could not stop laughing about because like they're metal. Why do you have to have gloves? I don't get this at all. But maybe they're slippery. Like they forgot to put in like handprints so that they would have some friction to them. So he's like, dang it, now I have to wear gloves all the time.
These slick hands that just slide off everything.
His gun just keeps falling out of his hand. Like,
he just sadly drops a burrito 90 times.
The idea of these enhanced humans is like kind of cool, I thought, but yeah, that guy just was nothing. I mean, the idea of like humans in this desperate situation that are willing to like sell their soul basically to not be part of this mass execution, but have to become part of the army, and the survival rate is like incredibly low. They mention that later.
Like that is super interesting,
right?
But it's the fact that like that Pierce is so dull and one note that like there's nothing like because that whole kind of idea contrasts really well with Wolverine and like Weapon X, where it's like he is also like a made weapon kind of thing,
right?
But there's no subtlety whatsoever to their conflict other than just like man with claw. Right. He also fight man with big claw, and it's just like, okay, cool, I guess.
And does Carol Danvers not have any powers in this version?
No, none in this. She just has commando.
Gun. Yeah,
she has guns and massive like eyeliner wings that like go down her face.
The face tattoos, because everyone's got face tattoos.
Oh yeah, everybody's got.
I don't know. It's not a tattoo. It's eyeliner. That's what I'm thinking.
It's a little
overzealous. Is Maybelline still around in the Age of Apocalypse?
Well, yeah, Maybelline and McDonald's were complicit in the genocide.
Yeah, well, I mean, she sacrificed, so they're trying to fly away, and they're gonna, Pierce is trying to blow up their plane, Carol, Logan, and Gateway, and she basically sacrificed herself by, tackling him off the plane with a grenade, and they blow up, and you assume she and Pierce are dead. Again.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So they will be.
Oh yeah, 100%.
We never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Nope.
So that brings us to the next issue, which is Gambit and the Externals number 3. Which, if you remember, which you probably don't, this is the group that is in space, trying to find a magic crystal, the Micron crystal or whatever, and yeah, it's a weird issue because Gambit is inside the crystal talking to the little keeper of the crystal guy who's kind of like the Ring Guardians from Green Green Lantern. Like,
oh yeah.
That's what he reminded me of, where he's like, oh, I have all this power, but I can't leave and I can't help you. So you're on your own.
Yeah.
And they do some, space crap and fly around. They find the Macron, go in it, and as Kieran put it in the notes, they find Dobby's methed up cousin, who is the guy I was just describing. And then they say that Gambit has to make a sacrifice to steal a piece of the crystal, so he sacrifices his love for Rogue, is what they're implying.
It's not made clear.
No.
It's not made clear. He's just like, you need to make a sacrifice. And he's like, I'm Gambit and I'm very New Orleans all the time. What could I possibly sacrifice? This one's for Rogue. And it works. And
written accent annoy you guys throughout this?
So fucking much.
Isn't it always that way with
it.
him, though? Like, I don't remember reading any X-Men where he doesn't have that.
But he has the accent, but there's a way to do it where it's like peppered throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where it's like here and there to remind you. It's every fucking bubble. Like every other sentence.
Single word.
Yeah.
Every single word has been like run through this like Nolan's like drawl.
It's like a meat grinder of words.
It's very bad. I personally thought it was horrible. I didn't like it.
Yeah. That's fair.
And
then Sunspot dies.
They get the crystal and Sunspot dies. Who cares?
Yeah.
I personally, I think the Gambit and the Externals blow. I hate this storyline so much.
Yeah, they're pretty forgettable. Like, I kind of forgot about this plot line, even though the Macron crystal is like a huge part of what needs to happen.
The Macron crystal, when we like get to the very end of Volume 4, is like the thing that they need to like finish the story.
Sure.
But the whole way they go about getting it is just so dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, so the space stuff, which is disappointing because I love space stuff, and I love the like weird cosmic stuff that Marvel does normally, but like
100%.
This just kind of pays it a little bit of lip service, and then is like, yeah, but none of the characters you like that are in space normally are going to be there, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and it's like, and this is such a problem with like the rest of the story, and I'm sure we can talk about this later when we finally get to our final thoughts, but like, there's so much stuff in this like space storyline that is mentioned, but has nothing to do with what they're doing. Like, there's this whole thing about like a dynasty, and like there's like different space factions guarding. The Shi'ar. Like, and it's like, but it doesn't have anything to do with the crystal and like getting it and the Age of Apocalypse. It's just there. It's like, if I sound really confused and exasperated, it's because I am.
That's fair. So do you want to continue your confusion and jump into X Universe?
X Universe. So this is basically just like a, hey, what's everybody else up to?
Right.
So Gwen Stacy is Wakanda's white savior, which is very uncomfortable. And it was very uncomfortable. We'll talk about it in just a sec. And surprise, it sucks everywhere else in the Age of Apocalypse. So we see a bunch of the other Marvel heroes like Tony Stark and the Thor and the Fantastic Four being resistance fighters. Mikhail, who is one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, arrives in Europe to negotiate peace with the Human Council, and somehow has the audience just eating out of his palm and absolutely just basking in his glory. And he invites all of the named characters to get on the ship, and he basically turns around and he's like, I am very evil, and this is my empath that I have hooked up to this computer. Y'all suck. And I mean, that's basically it. That's basically the issue.
Yeah, disappointing.
Well, we get our first look at the Avengers, some Avengers here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time they show up. It's bad.
No, there's okay. I don't want to say it's all bad. There was some stuff.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not all bad.
No, okay. So this one does, because it's introducing all the characters where you're like, well, what about the Fantastic Four? What about the Avengers? What about all these other characters? And I guess I don't know when timelines line up because, Professor X and Magneto, that was happening before a lot of these other teams, I guess, would have gotten their start. In the timeline, but it just seems like, I don't know when, or like specifically Apocalypse, but it's not like Xavier died and Apocalypse showed up the next day, right? Like,
no, there's like a gap of like a few years.
I feel like at least the Fantastic Four would have had powers by the time Apocalypse showed up. But for the sake
I would have thought so.
But for the sake of the story having only mutants have powers, I guess, was their big push. Like, did they even ever mention Captain America? Because he would have already existed way before that. And but if he was never found in the ice, he'd just be frozen.
He just never shows up.
Well, and they have Dr. Donald Blake, who's Thor, which is so funny to me that I've always forgot that was originally his alter ego as a doctor. Which, can you imagine, the cinematic universe Thor we have pretending to be a doctor?
Oh, man.
That would be so good.
Yep, that I could imagine that being handled now very well, but not when the Marvel Cinematic Universe started.
No.
Did you mention that Daredevil's, again, a side flipper? He works for
Daredevil works for Mikhail.
But the saving grace I was getting to was that Ben Grimm and Sue Storm are still alive and kicking and are resistance fighters, even though they don't have powers. And you know me and my love of Ben Grimm, and he does get to meet the Hulk, who is the Hulk. He did turn himself into the Hulk because he's like, well, I'm not a mutant, but I'm going to have powers so that I can not get murdered by these mutants. So, that classic, the Thing facing off against Hulk gets to happen, but, the Thing isn't the Thing. He's just a dude with a gun. And he does surprisingly well against the Hulk.
But, he's a scrappy little dude.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that Sue Storm is there and literally blows off Hulk's ear, which makes him revert to Bruce Banner. And do they not put it together? Because it seems like they find Bruce Banner and are just like, Dr. Banner, you should come with us.
No, they don't put it together. They're very dumb.
What's also weird is it doesn't seem like this Hulk is good or bad. He doesn't seem like he's working. I don't know. He's just kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fits with the Hulk, though, because if he's not with the Avengers, he's usually just I just want to be left alone, so I'm gonna go live in the woods or something. So yeah, I didn't hate this issue. I don't know, Daredevil. I hated his redesign. It was really dumb looking. But I did like seeing some of the powerless versions of the characters. I thought some of those were actually kind of fun. But yeah, Tony Stark, it kind of has some Iron Man-ish stuff happening, but not really.
Steampunk Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, I have to say, I did actually dig some of the ideas going on in this one, which is the thing I think they waited way too long to show us, what the rest of humanity was up to at this point. Because we're already so many issues of various comics in.
Yeah, and I will say, we have so much more to do, so I will only hold us up for a second. But Gwen Stacy parading through the villages of Wakanda as the aid distributing white savior was so uncomfortable. I get that it was 95 and maybe they weren't quite as aware of these things as they could have been.
They had yet to make Last Samurai.
It was not good. It wasn't good at all.
Nope. Yeah, I could have easily done without that part of it.
It was like Wakanda. It used to be real good and then it was hit by Apocalypse and now it's just it's like watching Live Aid. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
That's another issue I had with this one, though, was Wakanda, they've had the vibranium and stuff for a long time, and there's, pretty much always been a Black Panther protecting it. So, they don't tell you what really happened there other than Apocalypse hit it. But it's I think anyone could have held their own.
Black Panther was murdered. It doesn't really explain why, but I think it's in volume 2 or something. Okay. It's Black Panther, he's dead too.
But the choice is they set that scene in Wakanda and they're but Black Panther, he's a casualty of the war, but you have Gwen Stacy and Donald Blake saving Wakanda. It's just
it's so weird.
Yeah. Not a fan. So
let's go on to Generation
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get back to the Portland core.
Yeah, baby. So, we have this outside shot of the core and this weird two-headed troll thing with lots of piercings. Boy, who did those piercings for that big two-headed troll and its eyebrows and cheeks?
Whoever he told to do it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
But we still have some sneaky our Generation Next trying to sneak around, get in. Quietus, who's really Paige, and Vincente is sneaking around his office for files, looking for records of Ileana, where she might be. Sugarman wants to come see him. They pretend to be showering. So he doesn't get an idea of who he is. And what's happening? I should just read it. Kieran's thing, because it's way better than me. It's miserable, important, and core, real bad shit. Mondo kills a guy, but Mondo finds Ileana and puts her inside of himself, like in his rock body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Shadowcat and Colossus kind of show up on the outside of the core, getting ready to go in and back everybody up. But before they can escape, fake Quietus and Chamber are kind of found out to be, or Quietus isn't, but Chamber is found out to be not really who he says he is by Sugarman. And Sugarman tells Quietus, who's really Husk and Vincente, to kill him. And he says, they say yes, and there's a bam. And that's how that ends, pretty much. So, to sum it all up, they find Ileana, and they're trying to get out, but it doesn't go that real well, and it looks like they might be busted.
There's also a part where Sugar Man is like, don't use your gun, use your power. And this is when the audience also realizes we don't know what that power is. And maybe that was the point, that was kind of the gag, was you don't actually know what his power is, so they can't replicate it or even attempt to because of that. But I think we mentioned before that Sugar Man is set up to be this like really terrifying villain, but he just looks like Humpty Dumpty had a really bad day.
Yeah, he's a giant face with arms.
Right.
Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, mildly disturbing, I guess, but just a face.
But MODOK did it better. Let's be real.
Damn. Shots fired.
And a really weird kind of power, which we'll see in the future.
Yeah. So other than the art, this one was whatever. Like, I didn't have strong feelings on this one.
Yeah,
I do really like the art and coloring style of these issues of the Generation Next.
Yeah, what I'll say for it though is it didn't fuck around. Like, it moved the plot.
That's
like,
true.
It's probably one of the more straightforward stories of all these threads, where it's a rescue mission for this girl. It's how we're gonna get in and get out with her. They find her. Up, shit's hitting the fan.
Mm-hmm.
It's the third. All of these are 4-issue arcs, so we know the next issue. Next time we see these group, it's going to be the big climax of their story.
Right.
So, I mean, it was, from a narrative standpoint, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, comparatively
tight as in like efficient and did its job, not as in like awesome tight.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha. All right, so let's get into X-Man number 3. And Nate and his crew fight Domino, Caliban, and Grizzly. Grizzly eats Caliban, Forge stabs Grizzly, and Nate crushes Domino's mind, as you do. And holy cow, that guy with the red eyes is actually Sinister. And he kills Forge.
What? No.
Yeah, no, it turned out.
I did not see that.
It was a real good disguise.
Kieran, did you see that coming?
I've already read this and still it was a surprise.
Yeah. And then Nate sees Forge dead and isn't thrilled about that. And he finds out about it, and Sinister reveals himself to be Mr. Sinister. So
yeah, he's not thrilled. He's like, hey man, that's not cool. I like that.
What is this cape he wears that just looks like a regular cape was put through a paper shredder?
Yes.
It's the post-apocalypse. It's the Age of Apocalypse. I mean...
Yeah. It's got to be gritty.
Yeah.
It's destroyed.
I don't know. Mr. Sinister's always kind of had a weird design. I don't know. He has
a diamond in his forehead.
Yeah, he's also got the same, metal thing that was really popular at the time. Like, every single character seems to need to work in those, metal arms or legs or whatever, where they have, the lines going up and down them. It's very strange, but he's just kind of made of those robot limbs for whatever reason.
I
don't actually have too much to say on this one. It was just their excuse to
just have a big fight.
To have a fight, have Nate have to get mad at Mr. Sinister all over again because Forge was his father figure and was raising him, and that's who took him in, and his actual creator kills his father figure. So I guess there's some poeticness to that stupidity, but it's fine.
The character, honestly, of Nate Gray does not interest me at all. He was manufactured for this to be this.
Oh yeah. Like he reads and acts exactly like a character that someone in a boardroom was like, you know what we should do? Jean Grey and Cyclops' son, but he doesn't know it because he was made in a lab and he's really cool. And when he's not in the room, all the other characters should be saying, "Where's Nate Gray?"
Yes, I was just going to say that he's just Poochie.
He's Poochie for the X-Men.
Oh, man.
But sadly, he did not die on his way back to his home planet. He just fucking stuck around.
Yep. So that brings us to the last one in this volume, The Astonishing X-Men, number 4. Kieran?
So Rogue and the X-Men in the secret facility that they found out about from Wild Child. They fight Holocaust. It's like a huge battle, and they just constantly just like duking it out with the Infinites and Holocaust, and it almost looks like Holocaust will actually finally eat shit and die. But unfortunately, he just basically tells Rogue, like, Neener, I have your child, and he teleports away.
Right.
And Rogue is like, damn, he fucking got me. And then they all pose very dramatically on the last page, and they're like, we're going to bring it in to the Age of Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. And that's the end.
Can I say something?
We see that Magneto is held captured by Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Kind of being
yeah.
Just taunted
so,
and shit.
Whenever they're posing, Blink is always uncomfortably grabbing Sabretooth. And I say uncomfortably because she's not a romantic interest. She's supposed to be a daughter figure, and they make that very clear. Like, he rescued her, and they make that clear, but they want to have it both ways. So anytime they're posing in these big, like, team shots, she's like, oh, and like leaning up against him with her arm on his chest. And you're just like, this is getting very creepy. Like, there's some, and the shading on Rogue's chest, I don't think it works that way, guys.
That's not how light works.
Yeah. So,
Blink's like caressing Sabretooth's pet.
Isn't that creepy?
Yeah.
It's not good.
Also, Rogue's puffy sleeves. Have we talked about those ever?
Her costume in this universe was modified.
Everything is painted on skin tight except her sleeve.
Yep.
They're like from her elbows to her shoulders, it's big and poofy and puffy.
Yep. Well, most of the costume designers probably were cold, so
they refuse to be complicit in the genocide.
Yeah, and they're like, we're not making your terrible, terrible costumes, Apocalypse. All right. Well, that was volume 3. We made it through, and we only have one more volume to go. So
we could do this. We got this.
All right, Pat, you want to take us into
Hang in there, listener. You can do it. You're doing so good, listener. You're doing so good.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to volume 4, the final volume of The Age of Apocalypse, and that kicks off with Generation Next, number 4. Pat, do you want to take that for us?
Yep. So if you remember, this was left off with Husk and Vincente and Jono and Skin being cornered by Sugarman and a ton of like weird goblins.
Yeah.
They've never explained like what they are. But basically calling them out, and it ends on the one before ended on a panel with Quiet apparently shooting their friend Chamber, but Sugarman says he doesn't buy it and stabs, because apparently this is his power, stabs the fake Quietus with his tongue. Mm-hmm. Apparently his tongue can just do that. And then like the illusion falls away and Husk reveals herself and she's fine. But Vincente, who's the guy made of gas, was apparently very injured by the tongue.
Yep.
And now it's going to be a big old fight. And Sugarman does all his weird goblin things to kill them. A Colossus shows up and starts finally being Colossus and like fucking the shit out of everything and just smashing and crashing. Sugarman tries to capture Illyana from Mondo, but Apocalypse. Oh, that's right. Sugarman basically like somehow explodes Mondo, like comes up from inside of him and like kills Mondo, and Mondo dead.
Yeah.
Apocalypse then lands on Sugarman and smashes him into a bloody pulp. So you assume he's dead. And he's got Illyana. kind of a cool shot from like the dead remains of Sugar Man looking up, like upwards at Apocalypse, and he's holding his sister in his hand.
Yeah. Shading on this panel, actually very good.
Yeah.
Unlike that Rogue one.
Mm-hmm. And this battle has inspired all like the human slaves to start rebelling and fighting. So it's just kind of an all out fight with the monster mutant guards and the humans and Generation Next. And their whole thing is they're a mile underground and they're kind of fucked because there's like hundreds of these guards, and how are they going to get out of there? But they decide they're all going to like huddle together and try and fight their way out. Vincente's really hurt. He can't do anything. It looks really bad. So basically, Shadowcat, Colossus, and Ilyana basically peace out. She makes herself go, what do you call it? Like incorporeal.
Mm-hmm.
And floats them out to the outside of the core. And all their team, so it's just Shadowcat, Colossus, and Ilyana, and all their team is left in there with, these hundreds of monster guards. Which, why couldn't Shadowcat just go back one at a time and pop them all out? I was wondering that easy.
Who cares?
And also,
or couldn't she just take Ilyana? Why, if Apocalypse, because Colossus is like this indestructible force. Why? Because here's the thing. Apocalypse says, you take Ilyana, get to a safe distance. I'm going back to save the team. He falls down, kills the guards in the front gate, races to the gate. The gate's closing, the big steel door, vault door or whatever, and it closes in time for him to watch his team basically be like swallowed up and just like covered by this pile of evil monster mutants, assuming they're all dead. And then he shows up at like a campfire with Shadowcat and his sister later, like they didn't make it. Again, why did he have to leave with Shadowcat and his daughter if he was going to stay and do damage? He could have stayed and done damage and she could have gotten her to safety. Why couldn't she just go back and float everybody out of there?
Because he had to make some kind of big sacrifice.
Yeah, because he had to make that big sacrifice, which ultimately like doesn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah.
A bunch of characters in an alternate timeline.
It has to be painful.
Yeah.
It has to be painful for the character.
Oh, also Sugarman's not dead. He's like very tiny and
he's
small.
Very tiny and hitching a ride.
It's so dumb.
It's very dumb. Candyman is a terrible villain. But again, artwork amazing in these issues.
Yeah,
the Generation
cool,
Next
for sure.
art is some of my favorite in this entire series. It's so different and like just dark and sketchy, and the monster designs are so cool. And I like everything about it except the story's like fine. It's like you said before though, it actually does have some more traditional beats.
It's probably one of the most focused out of all of them.
Sure.
But it is also still really stupid.
Yes.
Like that doesn't make it any better of a story, but it is quite focused.
And Colossus, the character, is kind of a fucking jackass throughout this saga, but
he's a huge piece of shit.
I'm a sucker for his design.
It's good.
It's so
great
bad. It looks
design.
cool.
Yeah,
with his bandana.
He's got
mask thing.
he's got a Raphael bandana over his eyes.
And like one big shoulder pad, just one.
Sure, because like, let's be real, Colossus's normal design is kind of dorky looking, and this one is pretty good.
It's like flat top.
I mean, I love Colossus as a character, but his design has always been very dumb looking. So yeah, I dug it. I mean, as far as like compared to everything else happening in the story, like getting to these ones, I was always like, "Oh, it's one of these issues," because the art was so good. It was like a treat, a delicious treat. All right, so let's keep moving along then, because we got to get through Excalibur number 4. The Shadow King shows up in Avalon, basically just to wreck everything, take over people's minds and all that fun stuff. So Kurt teleports, Damask grabs his mind, and Switchback shunts him back in time. A power that was definitely mentioned before this issue. And
what's psionic skinning? What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Damask's power.
And
it doesn't matter.
According to your notes here, Kieran, everyone's favorite post-apocalyptic Doug Ramsey, dies. And again, everyone poses at the end of the issue.
Yeah, so like after they do this like teleportation thing where Nightcrawler's like, okay, if we all teleport and like, if I hold you guys in the split second that I teleport, we can grab bloody Shadow King out of this guy's mind, and Damask can use her powers, and then Switchback can use her powers. And they do that, and Shadow King's like, man, you'll never defeat me. And he shoots a blast at Destiny. And this guy, Doug, who was literally introduced like 4 pages ago, jumps in front of the blast to save her. And everyone's like, damn, Doug, he died. And it's like, who cares? I don't care about Doug. You only introduced him so you can kill him.
Yeah.
Yep. But Destiny agrees to go with him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. She agrees. She's like, fuck the Age of Apocalypse. Get out of here.
Quick recap, though. We're at our 3 big missions that we set up in the last episode of the show have all been almost completed.
Right.
Gambit and Externals minus Sunspot, who sacrificed himself, have a shard of the Mcron crystal. Colossus and Shadowcat have Ileana, and Nightcrawler's got Destiny agreed to come with him.
Yeah. So things are progressing towards a finale of sorts. So, Kieran, why don't you take us into X-Man number 4?
X-Man number 4. So Magneto is still kidnapped by Apocalypse, who throws a massive tantrum when he hears that Destiny is still alive. But that doesn't matter because that is only at the start of the comic, so that you will buy a different comic. Because Nate, who's the actual star of this comic, is beating up Mr. Sinister. And Sinister is like, "Maha, I'm a villain." And then he tells Nate that he's actually a test tube baby created by Sinister, made from Jean Grey and Cyclops' genetic material, bred specifically to kill Apocalypse. And Nate, obviously, he's a moody teen, and he tells him to fuck off, and he's like, no way, that's not what I'm ever going to do. And then I think that I didn't, my notes have run out at this point. I think they fight some more, and then Nate like flies off, and he's like, I'm going to kill Apocalypse, but of my own free will.
Right. But not because you told me to, because I want to.
That's literally what happens. But
Yeah.
Sinister dies. He thinks he's fine, and he was faking it. He's like, there's like a whole thing where
he gets blown up a few times, and he like reforms, but then that last part, he's like, it's fine. And then he like, oh wait, I'm actually bleeding everywhere. And then he kind of falls over. And is that the last we see of him, right? In the story.
He dies. Oh yeah, he died.
He's actually dead for real.
Yeah.
Dang.
Damn.
Can't believe
they're tying up loose ends.
Can't believe they've done this.
We're in volume 4.
So X Factor number 4. This is back to what? You got more on that last one?
Well, it's just he goes to Apocalypse's Citadel. He meets Cyclops and Jean Grey. And they have some weird bullshit like, we're connected, but I don't know how. And then it ends with him like climbing the outside of like the spire of the Citadel, going, I'm coming for you, Apocalypse. It's totally useless. Him meeting Cyclops and Jean Grey, it's dumb, but
it does happen.
Yeah. All right. So then Factor X.
All right. So did I call it X Factor again? Factor
It's
X.
okay.
It's a total,
I think there is a team called X Factor in the normal timeline.
There is. So this is Factor X, so that you know that it's different. And
it's
this is
backwards world.
Yes,
everything's backwards.
Exactly. So this is back in Apocalypse's the Pens that they keep bringing up, and with Scott being a turncoat now, they're all kind of fighting for dominance within the ranks, and none of them get along. Everyone hates Havoc. He's the one that's like, it should have been me that was the main guy. Meh. But nobody really respects or likes him, it seems like, and with good cause.
Which is so weird.
Like, his power doesn't even seem that good compared to some of these other guys that are like his underlings. So, but Cyclops and Jean are in the facility. They run into the Bedlam brothers, and so you think they're going to have a big fight, and the Bedlam brothers are like, nah, these guys suck, we're going to go with you. So they I the Flipper has become the Flippy.
the basis of their conversation is the Bedlam brothers are like, hey man, we should keep doing genocide, and Scott's like, nah, genocide's bad, I finally figured that one out. And the Bedlam brothers are like, yeah, no, we actually thought that too, that genocide wasn't too good. We're going to team up. And it's like, how weak are your convictions?
Maybe they just really like Scott and we're just hanging out there to be like his buddy or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they're like, God, now we got to deal with his brother? Yeah, we're out of here. It's like when you work somewhere and the one person you thought was cool gets a better job, and then you're stuck with all the other jerks that you don't like.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, their mission is they're breaking in to kill off, or not, they don't actually want to kill them, but they're the brains in jars that are brains of like really powerful telekinetic and psychic mutants, and they're like being controlled by a machine so they can kind of keep all the people in the pens and the experimented on monster things that Dark Beast has made from going haywire or trying to escape or whatever. And we get a glimpse of Jean being like, you know, full powered Phoenix for a minute there, because as she's battling with the brains, she kind of has a surge of power that destroys all of them, and she's like, whoa, I didn't actually mean to kill them all, but I guess that accomplishes what we needed it to.
Results are results.
Yeah, so of course, then everything goes nuts. All the captured people are let out of the pens, but also all of the weird monster things that Dark Beast has been making start breaking out too, and then Havoc is trying to keep them in line, but of course he immediately finds Cyclops and is like, we're gonna battle it out, but their powers don't work on each other. That's like a normal thing in the normal universe too. So he just kind of gets sucker punched by Cyclops once and is down for the count. And I'm like, dude, you are the worst. You're so terrible at this job.
He's so bad at his job.
There are a lot of bad characters in this whole thing. He's up there, man. Yeah. He's on the Mount Rushmore at least.
And that giant dog thing shows up, and he, I guess, pets the dog and is like, wakes up and is like, I'm gonna find you, and this time I'm going to bury you. It's like, dude, you have tried to take out your brother for the last 4 issues, and you have failed every single time. But this one, actually, out of all of the this arc with Havoc and Cyclops, as much as it was like repetitive and just Havoc being like a pissy baby, I liked this part a lot better, where it's like, because this part actually moves it along. You get to see like Phoenix doing some cool stuff and actually using some of her potential, which was cool. And just seeing Havoc finally get punched by Scott was, it felt good. to finally
it felt real good.
Scott kind of put him in his place, because he sucks. Like, I've never been a Havoc fan, not even in the normal universe.
Not even that really cool like face bar tattoo.
I mean, that won him some.
He literally has a barcode at the top part of it,
right?
In one panel.
But that's the end of that one. So next up we have Gambit and the Externals. They're back.
Yep.
Number 4. So basically Gambit and all his buddy pals managed to make it back to the, you know, to our world, to New York. But things aren't really going super awesome, because Richter has also made it back. And we kind of get like a bit of a jump in narrative here, because Richter is currently telling Apocalypse, like, hey man, this is how I managed to fuck up yet again. And so basically they were trying to get away with Charles, who is Rogue and Magneto's baby, and the shard of the McCran crystal. And jokes, the Marvel reader has decided to crash.
Okay, I'll do. So yeah, it's cutting back and forth. I'll just pick right up. Apocalypse has baby Charles, and he's kind of chiding Richter for being like a dumb shit. And it goes back and shows that Strong Guy betrayed them, Gambit and the Externals, and took baby Charles to him. And the shard, and then it ends with Apocalypse killing Richter, but it's like off camera. It looks like he's patting him on the back, is all we see. But he says it's so weird. Like, they don't really show how what he actually does to him. It almost looks like he's patting him on the back, but he says, you know, your death, basically.
Also, he's holding baby Charles in a very hilarious pose, because he's like pinching him in the crux of his arm. Like, how old is that kid supposed to be?
Yeah, I feel like it's very inconsistent. Like, if he's like a toddler or a newborn or like 6.
Right. So
he's just a child.
Right.
Yeah.
He is child.
His mutant power is his age fluctuates, give or take 2 years, plus or minus on any given day.
Man, what a show power.
But it ends with Gambit making a decision to save Leela, the woman he's decided he loves now, instead of Rogue, instead of trying to save Charles. From the Shard.
Oh my god, it's fucking.
So that's how that ends. Gambit sucks.
This bitch sucks so much.
Yep.
Gambit, that is.
Yep.
Gambit is that bitch.
Yes.
And then we go to the Amazing X-Men #4. And it cuts on the Madri, the religious zealot cult guys, kind of torturing Bishop. They're drinking his blood.
Delicious.
He's upside down.
Mm-hmm.
His arms spread out. And all of a sudden, Storm busts in and starts fucking shit up. It's a rescue mission.
Yeah.
And then, and another part of the temple or whatever, Quicksilver and Banshee show up.
Of course.
And like take out a guard, and then they go into like a cell, and you realize that all of the Madri, all of these like hundreds of zealots are all actually just
Jamie
clone
Madrox.
copies of Jamie Madrox, who is Multiple Man.
Yeah, it's just duplicates that he was forced to create. Now,
and he's basically been reduced to like, he's like not brain dead, but he's
like an infant. Like, they have like,
he's like an infant.
He's in a diaper,
literally in a diaper,
and there's
with,
like blocks
playing
and
blocks
stuff.
and stuff.
It's
weird. Like
weird.
we're just saying. That was great.
So did you know? Like, did you? I don't know, because you had read it a long time ago, but I was actually happy with myself for being able to figure out that all of the zealots were Multiple Man before it actually revealed that. So I patted myself on the back a little bit for figuring that out, because I realized they all looked the same, and they all kind of looked like how I remembered Multiple Man looking in the couple of comics I'd read with him in it back in the day, which I've always thought was like kind of a cool power, because, you know, he can like duplicate, and then I don't know when that became canon that like if it always was, when they come back and he like reabsorbs them, that he like gains whatever knowledge they gained or whatever. So it's like putting out this many duplicates has, like you said, reduced him to like the brain of an infant again, which was weird, like really weird.
It was very odd.
But I did like the idea of this entire cult being the same guy and just a bunch of him. I thought that was actually cool.
Cuts back to the Xavier State in Westchester, where a lot of the different X-Men's are coalescing and meeting up. I love they do these shots they do of the different teams like bursting onto the scene. I kind of like they're all just like always like rah, like it's just the weirdest. I don't know, they're like weird, but I like them. They do them so often, where whatever subset of X-Men are like bursting onto the scene somewhere. Usually it's like the Rogue people, Rogue and Sabretooth or Quicksilver, Storm, Morph, Iceman, all that, you know. But I like those. They find Colossus, Shadowcat, and Ilyana are there. They go searching into the tunnels for Rogue's son. Cuts back to Bishop and Storm are fighting the Madri. Jamie Madrox is trying to convince them that they should just kill him to get rid of the Madri, and they'd all disappear or die. And then you hear the fripp of little ribbons flipping around, and our buddy Abyss is back.
Mm-hmm. He even says I'm back.
Yeah, remember how he died? Uh-huh. That was a lie.
Mm-hmm. And then he has like he's like a 2-page monologue about who gives a fuck, doom and fate and fear and shit.
Who cares?
And Banshee decides that his time has come, and he flies into Abyss like chest cavity.
His asshole.
And then from within unleashes some sonic scream that explodes Abyss and also kills himself. Quicksilver runs out of the Jamie Madrox, who then just dies anyway after the fact. So Quicksilver, Storm, and the rescued Bishop are now heading back to Westchester. They get there. We find out Rogue has punched out Gambit for leaving her boy, which awesome. Good on Rogue.
Yeah, good on Rogue. Yep. More punching of Gambit, please.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then Quicksilver and them show up. So all the X-Men who are still alive have all reformed, and it's like, we're going after the Citadel. And we're going to get my brother. Quicksilver's like, we're going to get my little brother. Little baby Charles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that one.
Yep. All right. Cool. So, yeah, that brings us to Weapon X, #4. And let's see. So, last we saw Weapon X and what was that dude's name? Gateway?
Gateway.
Yeah, they're working on opening that portal. This is where I kind of get fuzzy.
I don't mind just running with this because Weapon X is probably the arc, the trade paperback I read the most.
Oh, yeah, you go for it, Pat.
Okay. So basically, he got Gateway back to the Human High Council. They're going to launch, and the Armada has launched to try, and they're going to nuke North America.
Mm-hmm.
Gateway is out on top of one of the Zeppelins. It's kind of a cool shot. And he's like, the wind's whipping his dreads in the back.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's going to open a gateway, and oh, look. Fucking Pierce is back.
Yeah, I love
to
him.
Fuck shit up again. And he's being carried by a winged, four-armed Carol Danvers, which is very confusing, right? Because she's a good guy.
Yeah.
What?
So she's got like 4 arms and wings and guns, and she's fucking shit up with the Human High Council. Pierce is fucking shit up with the Human High Council. We learned that Braddock all along was a traitor. But then at the last second, he decides he's not a traitor and tries to stop Pierce. But Pierce kills him. And we learn that Carol has been like infected with some techno virus, comic-y gobbledygook.
Right.
That's made her turn evil. Pierce kills her because she's trying to resist it. It's like, fuck it, I'll kill you. And his whole thing is, I'm just going to kill all of us. We're all going to go down. But, sorry. During the initial assault, when Carol, the sort of pseudo-possessed Carol and Pierce are attacking the High Council, Logan's arm, his good arm with the hand and the claws, gets shot up really bad, and that's some weird art with like skin hanging off it. Which again, I feel like they're being very fast and loose with this healing factor.
Oh yeah, like it's especially
he jumped through a raging inferno.
Yeah. He jumps into a burning blimp. He's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'll be fine."
All of this, so basically his right arm is useless apparently now in this moment, but just so they could set up, kind of a cool moment where he's saying he's going to go, Pierce is threatening, like he's about to kill Gateway. Logan's like, I'm going to get you, bub. And Pierce sees that his good arms was all messed up, and he starts laughing, saying, oh no, he's going to stump me to death. And Logan attacks him, and oh my god, he had claws inside his stump arm the whole time.
What?
But it messes up his metal glove pretty bad, though.
Stabs Pierce through this chest.
Which is a cool moment. However, weirdly, they ruin it on the cover for this issue.
They show.
It's like the big twist
dumb.
Like big surprise move, and it's on the cover.
Which, I also like the whole conceit that Pierce survived like a grenade like going off in his stomach.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah,
with Carol falling, but Wolverine's claws like through his chest kill him. But apparently he is dead, and Gateway opens up a giant portal for all of the Zeppelins to go through, and that's the end of the Weapon X 4-issue arc.
Yep, and that takes us into X Universe number 2. I think.
Yes, X Universe number 2, which I can probably do.
Yeah, go for it.
So basically, X Universe number 2. So as we said, Mikhail is using this like empath guy to basically like whip up the crowd below into like really wanting to get onto a ship. But it turns out, oh my gosh, on the ship they're actually trying to turn people into mutants, and so they've got none other than Tony Stark on the board, and they're gonna start stabbing him and harvesting his organs and all that kind of good shit. And so basically there's a lot of standing around and posturing, and Mikhail's like, I'm amazing and I'm going to kill all of you because I can do whatever the hell I want. And a couple of our heroes managed to get free when Tony Stark has like a, short circuit kind of thing in his, heart device. So when he gets stabbed by the mutant making machine, he basically short circuits the whole ship, and all our heroes manage to escape, and they bring Tony Stark back to life with a giant needle of adrenaline. I don't think that's how that works, but whatever. And so they all get suited up and armored up, and all the prisoners get to escape. Bullseye's also there, but like, who cares? And then they're trying to get into the main control of the ship. But who should show up but the Incredible Hulk? Mm-hmm. He's also there, and the Human High Council down below on the ground tells Mikhail to fuck off and eat their ass. And so he brings in his superhuman shock troops who he's somehow controlling with like mind control or devices or whatever is convenient for the story, really. And it is at this point that one of the most convenient things happens in the entire story is that Daredevil, who is watching over Empath, who is like controlling the crowd below and causing a lot of this bad shit to happen, brushes his hand by accident and is overwhelmed with the like pain and suffering of everyone around him, and then tears Empath out of the machine, and then is overcome by the grief of everything that he's done and realizes that his powers were inside him all along and not gifts of Mikhail, which I thought was terribly convenient. And so they you know, there's a lot of shooting and blasting and fighting and stuff. And Dr. Blake tackles Mikhail out of Big Ben and into the ground below. And they blow up some more Zeppelins. Dr. Banner shows back up, and he starts like hacking away at the ships and stuff. And they all blast off. And that is basically that's the last we ever see of them, really. They never show up again.
But they have this like the rest of the main Marvel cast that aren't mutants. Kind of, this is their time to shine in this little arc here, where they kind of like save the day and make off with the kid right at the end. Yeah. So yeah, and then that's that one. So that brings us to X-Men Omega, which go for it.
For all intents and purposes, this should be the end of it.
This is the end of it.
This is the end of it. Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm okay if we don't even want to do this.
We can mention the other two issues that are pointless, but
there's three issues afterwards. Two of
is
them
there three? Man.
Yeah, there's three of them.
One of them they randomly threw Blink issue 1 in again accidentally.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get through Omega and then we'll talk about it.
Yes,
because I think Omega's actually pretty tight.
Yeah.
And this time, Omega, I mean, tight isn't cool.
Yes. Starts with Magneto fighting back against Apocalypse and his goons, and they're basically, like, you start with him, like, he's been stripped of his armor, he's all bloody, like, he's been fighting for a while, and they're basically just telling him, like, make it easy on yourself and fall down, and he's like, you know, then he goes into a big rant, because, you know, he's got a monologue. He is an X-Men character after all. And monologuing about how he will fight him with his dying breath, and takes on, Apocalypse's goons, Holocaust. Okay. Yeah. So he's,
hey, have we mentioned this is a World War II allegory?
Mm-hmm. So he's in the kind of throne room of Apocalypse fighting, against his goons, and they kind of monologue back and forth, and, they kind of have their big battle. I mean, there's other stuff going on in this issue, obviously, because they're trying to, like, put all the pieces together. So all the teams are, like, meeting up finally. Xavier. He's dead. Cyclops and Jean.
The whole point of this thing, Jonah.
I saw Scott, and all I could think of was Xavier. You know, his dad. And they're like escaping with the humans. All the storylines start coming together. Magneto's, he's fighting a losing battle with Apocalypse, who's, turns out he's like, hey, we're just going to kill everyone. And Apocalypse's plan once again makes absolutely no sense, because he just wants to kill everything. But
it's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's so fucking stupid. It's such a dumb plan.
Before he can kill Magneto, Nate shows up, the X-Man, and so he gets to join in on the fun. And there's like him fighting Holocaust, and all of the mutants fighting like all of the weird monster guys, like on their own scene. So it keeps like flipping back between like multiple battle scenes that are going on, all of which were pretty cool, I have to say. Like, there's some really good art in this one. And
like,
then
the art for this one in particular, I think, takes like a slight step up.
Oh yeah.
Like, everything's very distinct and well drawn and like really well colored, and like it looks 90s, but not in like that normal kind of like, oh, wow, this is really 90s, but like, oh, this is actually like, it's real 90s. Like, it looks real rad.
Yeah. And then Magneto
I
finally...
love Magneto's black leotard.
Yes. If Magneto finally gets to be amazing, because as he's fighting Apocalypse, he basically builds his Magneto suit that he normally wears out of like scrap metal from Apocalypse's throne room, including his helmet, and just kind of starts wrecking shop on Apocalypse. And it's like the first time Apocalypse has really had to do anything in this story is when Magneto's finally been pushed too far. So the combined forces of Magneto and X-Man are just too much for him to take. Meanwhile, everyone else has been doing their whole, like, time travel plan to fix the timeline. So Bishop's been sent back to stop Xavier's son from killing him. David, that's I don't remember. Legion, that's his normal villain name. So he shows up to stop the murder from happening and is successful, which is going to fix the timeline. But of course, we can't leave it there because that'd be pretty unsatisfying.
That would be lame as shit.
It would be. I would have been so mad if that's like where it ended, because you do get to see
and it's fixed.
Nate finally kills Holocaust, and then in the coolest scene, I would say, as far as this book goes, Magneto, I don't know if he's back to full power or if just being mad makes him stronger like most comic book heroes, but he just rips Apocalypse in half, and it is actually one of the coolest scenes in this entire book.
It's really, really cool.
If anything, I would have liked one more page of build up with Apocalypse, because basically Apocalypse is smacking him around, and apparently Magneto's not doing anything anymore. And he's yelling at him to fight back. Why don't you fight back? And he just goes, I can't. I'm concentrating. Yeah. And then that panel
no. And he just, it's like, I think I messaged you guys. I was so mad at how much I actually really enjoyed this one.
Yep. And that's like where it ends. They're standing in the sunset. Rogue and Magneto are like, hey, isn't it great that the world is saved? And then it fades away because the timeline's been fixed. And
yeah. Now I will also mention just
a bunch of deaths happened.
Oh yeah,
sure, but do they matter? Come on.
Havoc, Jean Grey,
Havoc finally
Cyclops.
dies. The one
Logan kills him of all people.
Yeah, Logan kills Havoc, which I thought was kind of fantastic, mainly because I just wanted to see Havoc die.
Well, because, Scott and him can't use their powers, so Logan just kind of is like, well, I can use my claws on anybody, so...
Exactly. The only bit that I didn't really like was when Colossus accidentally kills Shadowcat. I thought that was
that was dumb. Yeah.
Dumb.
Yeah. But that's the end of the main arc. Let's get into some final thoughts. There are a few more issues. There's Blink 404. I didn't care. And then there's 2 issues that are the normal timeline where Nate is, I guess he gets pulled over is the idea, right? Like he's been teleported over to the normal timeline.
There's a couple issues. They're just selling books. I mean, honestly, it's just some of the people from the Age of Apocalypse go into the normal timeline and they try to mess stuff up in that time, but it just, I don't know. It's just Nate and Jean and them, they blow up a mountain where...
The seaboard thing they'd mentioned a few times, which is facilities where they're making the weird techno-human things and stuff. That's the facility kind of it's merged into one giant mass of stuff, and there's weird mutant things coming out of it, and they blow it up. That's it. That's the whole point. It's just to have banter between Nate and Jean.
It's so
Scott.
Weird to have it just tacked on the end. It's lame.
Because you have a good ending. You've got they're going the triumvirate or what, Bishop, Deshard, Ilyana, Destiny are going back and they're gonna correct the timeline, right? And Apocalypse is dead in this time. Magneto had that cool moment, and then it ends and all fades to white, and that should just be it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now,
wasn't that a fun little romp? Let's get back to the normal stuff.
I will say, so after that, for some reason, I'm sure it's a misprint. They have Blink number 4, but if you skip past that, you then have X-Men Prime, which is the story of this guy who has mutant abilities trying to make it to the Professor X's institute, and so basically like, he's trying to like run across the country to get there, and people are kind of like finding out about his powers and this whole thing with like the Legion virus is like infecting people. And so like anti-mutant sentiment is really like ramping up. And, you know, like following this guy across the country, he's like trying to run away from a mob that's like chasing after him. And he's like, he ends up tripping over and he's like, I'm not going to lay down and die. I deserve a chance to live my life and I'm not going to give it up for anyone. Why can't I just be left alone? And they start like harassing him and his powers pop up and he's all like green and scaly. And Professor X kind of like gets a flash of this guy running through the forest near where they are. And so they all like assemble to like go out and save this guy. And so they manage to finally make it out to this guy, but he's already been beaten to death by the mob. And Professor X says, Bishop says, Professor, is the boy dead? And he says, dead? Yes. He was killed by fear and by hate, killed by people who think human life is cheap if it happens to look different. Earlier, you asked me if you'd been dishonest in offering others a chance for a better world. And the truth of the matter, my X-Men, is that we would be insane not to fight for a better world, because heaven help us if this is our future. Heaven help us all. That, to me, is a great bookend for the entire series. But the only problem is that it's interspersed with a bunch of other bullshit that I don't give a fuck about.
Yeah.
The story about this guy running across the country trying to, like, save himself, and this, like, ultimate commentary on what it means to be the X-Men. Awesome. Great. Loved it. Everything else sucked.
Yeah. Yep. You're not wrong. So, before we get too off track, we gotta wrap this up, boys.
Oh, yeah.
So, we've read lots and lots and lots of X-Men in the last.
It's over 1,000 pages. The entire thing is over 1,000 pages.
Yeah, 5 volumes worth of X-Men from the 90s. We need to get some final thoughts. Pat, you're the guest. You picked it. You were a fan as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're kind of around the same age as me, so you were probably a teenager when these came out, right?
Yeah, I was born in 84, so I was, like junior high.
Yeah.
So like prime time, like prime age.
Perfect.
These were the coolest thing ever
to be reading this. So let's get your final thoughts on this as a whole, and would you recommend it? Is what
I'm gonna say you're welcome, and I'm sorry. On the whole, overall, I'm gonna say less held up than did held.
Right.
There's definitely a nostalgia factor with me. Most of it's meh. I think the X-Men, the Astonishing X-Men, the Amazing X-Men arcs are pretty good and worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a core story here that's pretty decent. Like the Astonishing X-Men arc, Excalibur, because it just ties in a little bit. I mean, the Externals thing, but there's a lot of, man, it could have been really awesome and good, and they just try to do too much, you know? They just try to, they were trying to sell comics, right? Like, if you try to buy all these comics, it's so many issues of so many different comics.
This was at, like, the height of comic mania, too, right? Like, this is when comics had never been hotter.
It's just, it should have been, I don't know, when you do something like this, they literally had every single property go in on this. And like, you can tell, it got so much tighter narratively as we got towards the end, because they were like, oh fuck, we actually have to end this, right?
Yeah.
But
would you recommend
if you're curious, dip your toe in the water, you know?
See if your library has it, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and jump into mine then. So overall, I am glad I read it. I'll start with that. Like, it is a story I've always meant to. I have always meant to go back and read, right? Like, I go back and read some of the old, like, big story arcs occasionally, like the Crisis on Infinite Earths and whatnot, and those are equally as hard to just jump in and, like, know what the heck is going on, because it's like, if you don't know what's happening in DC Comics in whatever year that came out, you know, it's like you're totally lost. So I give this some credit for being like, okay, to make it, in theory, to make it hold up better, it being a separate timeline is perfect, because it could be one arc that wraps up nicely, and that's it. Like, it could stand the test of time forever if it were done incredibly well. The problem is there's 5 volumes of this, 4 of the main one and the prelude. The prelude, looking back, feels very unnecessary. There were a few good moments, which we touched on. I mean, it sets up some of the stuff, but overall, like, it's way too long. Like, you definitely know that they were, this is an era where they're just making money hand over fist. So they're trying to pump out, like, books, like as many as they could in a short period of time. That's the feeling I get from reading these. Like, the Blink stuff I did not need those 4 issues to be part of this collection at all.
No,
like,
not
you
at all.
get enough of her story just from talking to Sabretooth, that you don't really need it. The main story is actually, like, nothing like what I thought it was going to be, as far as the events that happen from, like, tidbits I'd heard from, like, friends and whatnot. Like, they are telling me stuff that must happen in other story arcs, because none of what I remember being told happened in this. So I'm not sure what I thought this was going to be. But it's such a good idea, but it's just executed so badly. And I think a modern writer taking the same main story arc and being able to kind of do whatever they want with it would just come out so much better. Like, you could do this story in like a 6 to 8 issue run. I think you didn't need it to be 4 volumes of 5 or 6 different series running concurrently.
100%.
It's just too much. So I don't think I can recommend it unless you're just like me, that you really want to see, like, I have to see this big story arc that everyone was talking about, you know? It just, like, there was just too much dull, like, why are these characters here? I don't care about anybody that's, like, Gambit's other people. Like, I'd never heard of any of these guys.
There's so much dross throughout the entire story.
So, Kieran, what are your final thoughts, and would you recommend?
Man. Okay. Okay, as I said earlier, I was so mad at how much I enjoyed X-Men Omega.
That is so good. That's the thing that kind of makes me mad.
Yeah, it does. Like, I was reading it, and I, like, when all the X-Men show up at Apocalypse's Citadel and they're ready to take him on, I was like, oh my god, I'm actually excited to see this happen. I'm excited to see all the X-Men take him on and finally, like, take him down. And, you know, when Magneto tears him in half, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so much fun. Why was that not the rest of the story? I will tell you why. Because there is so much unnecessary bullshit in this story that doesn't need to be there. And it's 100% a product of the times, in that, like, they are raking in so much cash from making as many comics as they possibly can in as short a time period as they possibly can. And it shows. And the entire story suffers so much for it. Like, would I recommend Age of Apocalypse? No, not at all. I'm so sorry, Pat. I would not recommend it.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like I said, I don't think I think I do agree with you 100% if I didn't have some kind of strong nostalgic factor in there. I think you're 100% right. All the criticism, anything you negative say is 100% accurate.
Like, if you were curious about, like, Age of Apocalypse because, like, you know, you'd seen a bit of the movie or you'd just heard about it like I had, I honestly, I would recommend just pick up volume 4 and just read it. And just read it from the start to the finish, because there's so much stuff in the previous 3 there's like little nuggets that are good, but the rest of it is just not. Like, I would say volume 4 I kind of enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I kind of enjoyed volume 4. Volume 3 was very, very average. Volume 1 and volume 2, and I say this with just so much love in my heart for you, Pat, and so much love and respect for all the people who worked on this. Volume 1 and Volume 2 are probably 2 of the worst comics I've read in the last, like, 2 years. They were so bad. I cannot begin to express how bad they were. I think, like,
it's okay.
My biggest, like, core issue with this, and I briefly touched on it, I think in our first episode, is that so much of the Age of Apocalypse is future dystopia with no point. The entire point of the first 2 volumes is just to tell you how bad it is in the Age of Apocalypse and how awful this future is and how awful the dystopia that's been created is and how miserable everybody is. but there is no point behind it. There's no like, this is what it means to exist in the Age of Apocalypse. It's just sad.
Yeah. So little happens in the first half of this.
Yeah.
Plot-wise, narrative.
Apocalypse is like kind of revered in a lot of comic circles, I think, as like this amazing, like big bad villain. And honestly, he sucked. Like he sucks real bad. He does nothing. You never know what his powers are. I can't tell you what his powers are, and I just read 5 volumes of this.
Yeah.
So,
like, as far as I can tell, his powers are sitting in a chair and yelling a lot about how
he made his fist really big that one time.
It's just the number of like narrative flaws, bad writing, bad art. It's just I could not recommend it at all to like, if someone was so determined that they wanted to read the entire Age of Apocalypse, like, you're not going to hate yourself by the end or anything, but you're probably not going to enjoy it either. So yeah, it highly disappointing for something that I had heard so much about.
All right. Well,
I finally purged that from my body. I've been holding that in the last 3 episodes. It's finally out.
So we're gonna call it. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, and that's on top of the other several hours. So I'm finally gonna have to put a pin in it, guys. So we're gonna remind people to come to GeeklyCon and come to our panels and hang out and play games, because it's going to be a really fun time. And beyond that, Pat, why don't you let people know where they can find you online and what you do?
Yep. Twitter is the best social media to find me on. I'm at the Pat Edwards. Also have a website, thepatedwards.com. For the most part, I write books and stories. My first novel, Space Tripping, is out now. Ebook, paperback, audio. I had a short story published in an anthology called Escape by The Writing Block is the publisher. You can find it. Mm-hmm. Block is BLOC. In January of this year, 2019. I have another short story coming out in another anthology by the same group towards the end of this year. And that's going to be called Deception is the anthology title.
Okay, cool.
And Space Tripping sequel will probably be hitting the stores in 2020.
Oh, nice.
And then Let's Rewatch podcast, which we basically just did 3 episodes of Let's Rewatch comic form.
Right.
You rewatch a movie you liked, see if it held up.
Right.
This would be a case where it didn't really hold up. And then hopefully I see you at GeeklyCon.
Heck yeah. All right, Kieran.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett, or you can find my Dungeons and Dragons podcast. It's at CNG Podcast. Jonah, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on Twitter at Spambot. I'm on Patreon. Other than, this show's Patreon, which you should totally donate to.
Do it.
Thank you, Pat, for becoming a patron. I saw that. I have my own Patreon right now, patreon.com/Jonah, and that's for my writing. I'm trying to ramp that up more as we approach GeeklyCon. Scheduling is a thing, so that's my big hurdle right now.
Hey guys. Becoming a patron of the show is the least I could do after what I just put you through.
But no, I'm happy we did it, because it is actually one of the like bucket list comics that I was always going to get to, and now we have, so I can cross that one off.
No, much.
Thank you, Pat,
for
indulging me and having me on.
Three in a row, and this is a little behind the curtains, folks. Like, usually when we have guests, we try and record all the episodes back to back to back. That did not work out this time, and thank you to Pat for sticking with us when we've had so many scheduling conflicts trying to get everything done. So you're welcome back anytime. Next time we will have to read a good X-Men comic. It'll be awesome.
It'll be something that is critically acclaimed and is one tight little volume.
Right.
You're only allowed 6 issues maximum.
Need more mutants, metahumans, and monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows like Transformation Sequence, Cthulhu and Friends, and Drunks and Dragons. Help us make the show the best that it can be by supporting us at patreon.com/inksandissues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review to help us spread the word. Interact with us on Twitter at Inks and Issues, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh dang comics. All right. Well, with that, we will see you all next time.
Bye. Goodbye. I love you and thank you so much for listening to the last 3 episodes. Another really long.